All right. Welcome to tonight, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Hangout. Today's topic is on bridging nations, semantics, and anticipating change. Today's date is March the 22nd, 2015. And if everybody will go along and just introduce yourselves, that'd be fantastic. No particular order. Or we have Irina. She's in Taiwan. We have Mr. Sean Hodgins. I can't remember where you're staying right now.
I'm in the U.S. in Ohio right now.
Gotcha.
I got two messages from Marcelo and Brian that they can't hear anybody for some reason.
Oh.
We can hear each other. Maybe let's have them reconnect.
Yeah. You guys can hear me though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm not sure how to fix that then.
They might want to double check their speakers and all that, and if all else fails, restart.
Okay. Should I just restart now? Or
No, they'll have to just restart their computer.
Okay.
We're fine.
Okay. All right. We also got Mr. Clifton from or he's residing in Atlanta, Georgia. So yeah, does anybody want to give like like a main overview of what they thought of tonight's video?
Anybody?
Anybody at all?
Bueller?
Yeah, no rush.
Well, I've seen it before, but I admit I haven't. I didn't watch it for today.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It's an interesting video. The things he talks about. Semantics is probably the one that you could talk about the most. And what he talks mostly about semantics is that our language is very insufficient to begin with. And I've mentioned this before, but it's a hodgepodge of different languages thrown together over time, and it was never intelligently put together. So when we talk to one another, we don't necessarily interpret what we're saying the same way that the person is picking it up. And what typically happens with people is you say something, you think they understand what you said, but when they hear it, it's filtering through their background, and then it's usually coming out in some variation of a different way. So semantics is defining kind of what the words actually mean and what people hear and the differences between that. So one thing that we have to focus on if we're going to make this whole idea happen is we're going to have to be better at communicating and make sure people understand just what we mean, and eventually develop a language that will surpass our language, and it will be more based on logic, and it will be more scientific and more mathematical, so that there's less and less misinterpretation. So that's my intro for that part.
That's pretty good. Yeah. Well, going with that, using the language that we have now can you guys think of a good way to communicate better with the language that we have now? Like, how would you go about bringing a new idea to somebody with the least ambiguity, the language that we have now.
How?
Yeah. Like, how would you make sure that you and the other person are on the same page?
Well, I would have a more strict definition of each word. I would create the language in a fashion that is more practical. Sorry, more practical and organized in a way that makes sense. So when we say a word now, for one thing, words have multiple meanings, right? So you could say see in English, and that means multiple different things. It could mean the big saltwater body that's like the ocean, the sea. It could mean the letter C. It could mean seeing something visually. It can mean a lot of different things. So starting to eliminate redundancy in the language, I think, would be a good start, and making it more universal. So it's not so ambiguous and based on what people think the word means and have an actual meaning. But nobody's ever done that as far as I'm aware.
I agree with that. I think a good start, usually when I'm talking to somebody and I'm about to, like, I started a discussion on something I think is fairly important, but maybe, relatively unknown to that person. Ask them what, like, we're talking about, semantics or whatever. I would ask them to define the term just to make sure that we're on the same page, and then I go forward that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can ask this kind of question like, what do you mean by that? Or what do you mean by this? So you will understand better what they mean, and you understand better what the values are and what kind of environment they come from.
Yeah. So that way that you're actually speaking to the person and not talking at the person. You're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. All right. Well, yeah. You talked about censorship as well. Do you guys have any thoughts on the censorship that you talked about in the video, or how censorship could favor one group versus another group, or how that may, stop ideas or stop communication with one group to another group?
Well, my comment on censorship is that it's something that is created somewhat to establish a working idea of how things should be. And so when people say things that upset the apple cart or take something away from the established status quo, it's censored, and it's not always in the best interests of everybody. It's in the best interests of whoever's censoring it, because the only thing that I think should be censored is things should be censored only on based on accuracy. So if something is being stated and it's unequivocally true, you should never censor that. Whether someone doesn't want to hear it or doesn't want other people to hear it should be irrelevant. It should be based on closer approximations of the truth and always trying to get more towards the truth. And other than that, I don't see any practical reason for censoring anything, because most of it, if you look at it, comes down to either fundamentalist belief systems or capitalism or profit in some way. And as far as censoring, a lot of words that are censored are what we call bad words. You know, swear words, cussing, so on. And that's understandable, but where is the origins of those words? And when you really think about that, if you say a word, it only has bad meaning or power if you give it power. So it's only what we give it. So if you say shin, that's the part of your leg. But you change one letter and you make it shit, and all of a sudden that's a bad word. And that's ridiculous. It's not practical. And that goes back to one of the inadequacies of language, too. Like, how does a word become bad because you change one letter and we say it's bad? To me, it's not practical, and it's very old, it's very dated, and it's like some kind of slime that came from the ages centuries ago. It's some kind of primordial slime in our language that we just accept. And there's no reason really for it.
And even bad words can mean bad to you, but not bad to other people. Some people use bad words to greet other people. Even in Taiwan, I hear they speak the local language. A farmer, and he's greeting another like farmer. He's saying like, so it's really, really bad words, but you know, it's a normal way to communicate for them. So
Yeah.
what do you call bad words? Actually, not bad words for like different people that come from different environments. So it's still interpretive. So you know,
What is the word?
what was the word?
Yeah.
The word they greet each other. Oh well, my friend, he's a farmer. He greets another farmer like, "How you fucking man today?" It's like, really, and he has to say that because it's like, fuck you, man. It's really, he has to say it. Like every time he greets, I can observe that, and it's like, yeah, I'm good. You know, it's normal to them, and you know, but to other environments, the same country, it's not normal. So what you call bad words is really too different to other people.
All right. So like,
That's a good point, too.
if you were to go from like one environment to another, do you think that you should have to change your language, or do you find yourself changing the way that you speak depending on the environment that you're in, like a work environment versus like environment with your friends or with your parents and so on?
I think that actually in the future there will be no this kind of words, and there would be there would be no need for this kind of words, because in the future the emotional approach, it will be decreasing, like to express yourself emotionally. It will be like more scientific based, and the language will be different because the environment will be different, and the things people are engaged in will be different. So of course the language is supposed to be changed, just like it's changing also now, and then we actually also, our language has been changed, but not that much. Of course, it's a technological progress, but I think that there will be like any room for this kind of words, because they just express the emotions of the person, you know, like more like emotional, and there will be like less of it in the future.
Okay. So basically we should be working towards changing the language so that it has like a more scientific point of view, essentially.
Yeah. So
Got you. All right, and we should So like we should try to teach people to try that out and maybe adopt that way of speaking.
yeah, sure. It's just you know, like it will be change, and you need to first change your mind. Like it's not don't express yourself as through emotions only, or through like your values. You just express yourself through your knowledge or your experience based on any data or facts. so in more precise way. So that's how you can actually change, and also change the environment. If everyone thinks this way, it might impact the environment they are in.
Yeah. So like, yeah, if somebody speaks relative to their environment, you should try to augment the environment so that they have the opportunity to speak in a more scientific manner, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool. I agree.
And about talking differently with different people, I think everybody does that to a certain degree, some people more or less. And it's one way to relate to other people better. And it's also a very sort of subconscious way that we judge other people and how we interact. When somebody talks like you do, you naturally feel like they're like you and you can relate better to them. And when someone's very different, it seems to sort of isolate the two of you and make you feel differently. So when you're trying to talk to people to get a point across to them, I think it's useful to use a similar language that they use similar words, and of course in some situations, professionally and so on, you can't start swearing because if you're in a job interview, you won't get hired. Or, it'll upset people in the boardroom or whatever. You can't talk the same in all situations, and that's pretty common throughout lots of different cultures over time. And there's a lot of very specific ways to talk in different countries to different people. Like, for instance, in Japan, you use certain words if you're a female, you use certain words if you're a male. You talk more formally if you're talking to somebody who's socially above you or has a higher status than you. You have to use much more respectful words and so on. People talk more casually with their friends, and it's very different. But that's sort of an example of people talk differently around different people.
Yeah. Gotcha. Let's see. Does anybody have anything else to say on semantics?
Yeah, you guys failed to mention using physical reference. Physical reference is essentially universal to nearly all languages. So, but not only that, like when you're in front of somebody who might be from another culture or language, you can use physical references to give them a more accurate viewpoint of what you're talking about. But even you and I, who seem to speak the same language, I could be talking about this amazing thing, saying it's this color orange, da 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 da, and you could still be far off from what I'm trying to get you to understand. So if I were to use a physical reference, just even though we're speaking the same language, it's much more helpful. I might be talking about this type of orange. The color is just an example. It could be the size, it could be the weight. These types of things. So physical reference, when Jack explains that, it's really important, especially in the world of semantics.
Oh, agreed. Very much so.
That would fall kind of under being more scientific, I think, as well. Because the methods of science have to do directly with the physical world, so in an indirect way, it's kind of the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, he's talking about an actual orange, apparently. All right.
That's what I mean. 2 words, or two meanings for 1 word. That's an orange, and it's the color orange. So I suppose redundancies are almost impossible, but I think you can reduce a lot of the words that have multiple meanings.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I guess overall, what I'm getting, the best way to go about changing our language for the better, starting now, I guess, while we're steeped in the old language, would be to uh, attempt to speak more scientifically or more technically, and use a physical referent um, when trying to get a point across. Try to pin down what you're saying as far down as possible so that people can understand you convey the most meaning in the least amount of words, I should say.
Yeah, that's not bad.
All right. All right. You guys got anything to say about the Bridging Nations topic? What you guys think of that?
I think it's something we need to do a lot more.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
I'm coming.
what are we gonna do? I mean, that's probably the I don't know if the responsibility is on you and I to bridge a nation. We have other things we're trying to we have other things we're trying to do kind of prior to that, and that is what we're doing here and building teams and making ourselves stronger. So then those teams can create sub teams or teams within teams that are more specific to those types of things. And there would be a team whose job it was, which would be connected to media, marketing, social networking, and directly connected to TVP. And those might be people who are more capable of bridging nations. But come on, no, you and I are not going to be bridging any nations anytime soon.
All right. What about
be realistic?
I should say then.
What's that?
What would be a good way to bridge people, I guess? Since a nation's made of people for the most part.
I'm sorry, I just turned up my volume.
Bridging, nations are made of people, so how would we go about bridging people?
Yeah, well, I wrote it down in the thing, so I'll say it just for the heck of it, is that talking on common grounds, things like the 5 topics that I like to bring up that almost nobody can argue against is food, air, water, education, and shelter. And you can throw in a 6th, which would be medical, but I think that's just, you can keep going with stuff. So I just keep it simple at 5. Talking about these topics is universal to all humans on Earth, and therefore, if we stay in those specific areas and don't vary outside of them very, very often, we become very focused and very specific what we're talking about. But like you guys were saying earlier, I put down here the prerequisite to doing that is the semantic problem, and that's being able to effectively communicate with somebody else. So, right now we're dealing with English, and you're only understanding 70 to 90% of what I'm saying if we're lucky, and I'm only understanding 70 to 90% of what you're talking about. So it's tough, but we have to if we can understand these situations, then we can become better at it. And so first thing is understanding, which is what we're trying to do right now, and get better at this. So talking on common grounds, but you can't talk on common grounds unless you can talk or communicate. So we already covered semantics. Semantics can take many, many sessions and many, many years, obviously many, many lifetimes probably to deal with. And then Jacques, we also touched on using methods, talk on their grounds. When he uses the KKK example, he didn't say anything negative about the KKK. In fact, he might have acted like he actually enjoyed it and liked the organization and wanted to hang out with them. He might have used that method, although his intention was to undermine the entire thing. That's basically lying. A lot of us, especially me, don't like lying at all, but I think in those circumstances it might be worthwhile, I suppose. And then when he infiltrated the Arabic people in New York to teach them that the Earth is not flat, it's round, and how it's done, he did these 2 things by going to the leader. So talking to the common person apparently is no good. So what the heck are we to do? So I would just revert back to building teams. When we have a marketing team that's full of 20 to 50 to 100 actual strong people, wow, we'll be marketing our asses off. Right now we have nobody. So, you know, these types of things, we just continue to build ourselves, build our teams, and then we see what we do then. But understanding all of these aspects, and probably hundreds of more, is a good start.
Okay. Well, before they, you know, you spoke of speaking to the leader. How would you go about practicing speaking to the leader if you're only going to speak to the leader?
You have to talk in their terms.
Yeah.
In the terms of the environment and the terms of the environment of the leader. Otherwise, you will not get anything to them. Just like Jacques, he was in the Arab, and what was that? He got the idea that the Earth is round when he talked in their terms, like the terms of the environment. So he could get across this idea. Or if you talk to a religious person, you also have to talk to in the terms of the religion, of the religious environment, so they can get the things better. Otherwise, it's just waste of time, or it's sometimes waste of time if you even talk in the religious terms. Still waste of time. So not everyone will get that. Yeah.
Like for most people, I think, especially from examples that Jacques gives, the people he was able to work on respected him and saw him as an equal, if not better than them. So, for example, if I try to go and do this thing to a minister, it's not gonna work for many reasons. But one of the main reasons being the minister will not see me as an equal or stronger than him in that area. So that's how I'm not, because I could say the best words, but if he doesn't see me as that, then my words can be just dismissed easily because I'm not on his level. So Jacques had, in those examples, and sorry to keep referring back to Jacques, but we happen to be in this. But I'm sure there's thousands of examples around the world that where people that made changes had a level of respect or a level of authority about what they were talking about. So then that inevitably leads back to us. We have to make ourselves badass in an area or multiple areas enough to where when we do attempt to do this, when we do attempt to talk to a leader or of an organization or a group, they have to perceive us as at least equal with them. Then when we start step one, which is a semantic communication, we're at least not spinning our wheels.
Okay.
So
I don't know. I'm just pulling this out of my ass because that makes sense to me.
Yeah. All right. So basically, yeah, it's basically just talk to the leader and work your way top down. Is that pretty much the overall plan, or?
No.
That's what I mean.
Well, all we have to work from is the examples we've seen in front of us, and I'm just reviewing, you know, some of those. Doesn't mean that's the answer. No, heck no.
All right.
Well, going back to the theme of talking to the leader, in our current system, the people that we consider our leaders are politicians and the president. So what do you guys think of the ability of these people to bridge nations? Do you think they're capable of that?
I don't think they're even trying.
What?
Personally, really. They divide themselves into, you know, smaller like groups of people so that less and less people speak to each other. It seems like. So I don't really think they're trying or they care to try. Actually, it doesn't seem that way to me, at least. So.
Yeah, they have to first have the intention to actually come to a solution. And
How would you go about motivating a leader to do so, though?
It's really tough because right now the only thing that motivates them is their career and being reelected, and that ties directly with money. So
Mm.
inevitably, it goes back to money, which usually perverts pretty much any institution that it gets involved with, because it overrides everything else. It overrides everybody's uh, best interests. It overrides what makes sense. It overrides technology. So I think that's a pertinent point, that we can't bridge nations until people realize that it's not about money, it's about the real physical world. And science is the best way to go about organizing and realizing what the nature of the physical world is. So
All right.
So then we're reverting back to education and value system change,
yeah,
which is what everything reverts back to, by the way.
it kind of boils down to raising awareness, which is what you call educating people.
Yeah. So,
Like, uh-oh. Oh, Jamal? What is your name? I'm so sorry.
Stefan.
Stefan, okay. Yeah, our intent is not to create people that are going to go, at least in this form that we're dealing with right now. This is POC orientation. So we just want to give a brief introduction to the basics of the Venus Project. I would call it, on a scale of 0 to 100% knowledge of TVP-RV, call it the first 10 or 20%. So we certainly do not expect and definitely do not want those people who are at a 20 percentile understanding of this information to be going after leaders of anything, to be trying to convince anybody of anything. These people better have far above 50%, 70%, 90% proficiency in all these areas, which can take years. And also, they have to have public relations degrees or at least qualifications in those areas. So I think as far as that's concerned, you and I don't have to figure out right now how we convince leaders. That's all my point is.
All right. So, so do you suggest like what a more grassroots approach? Speak to the people on the street and raise awareness that way, or?
Oh, well, I mean, in this context right here, right now, I encourage people to get through POC orientation, become a full POC, and then start creating localized teams and slowly grow and study groups, and then online study groups, and then in-person lectures and discussions, and then community types of meetings, and starting to create a presence in your area. These are all very long processes, but this is number one: getting through the orientation and becoming a POC, and then we can move on from there.
I would say also that our role as POCs and candidates ultimately comes down to we need to become better communicators, and we need to be more knowledgeable about this topic, which is what you were saying, Sean. But ultimately, we're communicators because it's all a social endeavor, and we have to become better at conveying these ideas in an easy way to other people who know nothing about it. And only by doing that,
Was it the restart?
Are you
I
guys?
don't know.
Are we
Are you
good?
guys still there?
Are we
It's
good?
like, what? Yeah.
I thought that was me, and actually I've been having internet issues, so I thought I was
Okay.
but I'm not hosting, so we'll see.
I
You
mean,
guys
it
can
still says live. It looks like we're good.
Weird.
Sean's back.
All right.
We have a ghost that's haunting our hangout.
That was weird.
Was it me?
I thought it was me.
The ghost has self-awareness, apparently.
The government doesn't want us talking about this stuff.
Oh my God! Back in the beginning, the first couple weeks after I watched, I think it was Zeitgeist Addendum, I was freaked out. I was like, I know this information. Oh my God! How many people? They're gonna be after me now. Like it was like 6 years ago, but come on, I was freaking out.
Did you go get a gun and like sit in your room and wait for the officials to arrive?
No.
All right.
But that just demonstrates that we're not even a blip on their radar, not even close, you know. So.
Yeah, that's true. I don't remember what my last point was before it blacked out, but basically, we need to be better at communicating, and learning this stuff is a first step. And it's a process that, like you said, takes years. And oh yeah, I was saying we need to use all the different tools at our disposal, which is great because the internet allows us to do 100 times more than what we could do before. So we can use social media in many different platforms, and that's going to keep changing. We can use face-to-face. We can use all kinds of online advertisements or classifieds. You know, we can use a lot of things that we didn't have before. So that is a positive step because it's easy to broadcast now.
Okay. Let's see. You guys have any thoughts on? He spoke on indoctrination a good bit in the video. You say indoctrination brings people to a general static value system. You guys want to talk about how that's could be detrimental? How that's like unnecessary or anything like that, or?
Well, the key word there for me is that you used is static. You said, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's the problem. Is no static way of seeing things can be realistic because things are not always knowable at this time, and the universe is constantly changing. So the idea of having a static set system and way of seeing everything and a worldview that doesn't change is impossible, and eventually it'll just become less and less relevant. So it's one thing to change your viewpoint or your value system, but it should, in my opinion, should always be directed more towards what we know and knowledge up to this date, and not old ideas, not anything from the past. Everything should be re-evaluated and challenged and questioned until we become closer and closer to what is real.
Yeah.
The problem I have with this is dogmas and institutions, and dogmas being the same static thought process, and they can be applied to all kinds of things, be it religions or patriotism, nationalism, whatever. If somebody has like racist type of thoughts, if they're sexist, if they're anti-gay, anti-whatever. So anyway, dogma is very detrimental and hindering to our progress, and institutions are basically hundreds of years of dogma that makes money. And I don't know, I didn't say that very well, but I'm trying to correlate institutions with dogma, and institutions like to keep things static, the same, especially if they're profitable. So institutions are just as bad as, if not worse than, actual dogma is. And we all know that dogma is static, and if the universe and the world and even humans and definitely technology are ever changing, yeah, we have static institutions and static humans. We are running into problems.
So you think that's a good point to bring up with somebody on the street that you're just talking to? Like if you're trying to explain a RBE or TVP, would you use that as an example?
Well, I don't talk to people on the street. That's a whole different story. Because I feel like the words I have to say to them are as if they're another language. Not to be too pompous about it, but I would say I'm trying to speak calculus to people who haven't even passed basic arithmetic. And so to speak to people on the street is not a good use of my time. Certainly it needs to be done at some level or another, but I just don't. You walk up to somebody and say the word resource-based economy. I mean, the benefit it does have is that it's in their mind for the first time. Hopefully by the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh time they hear it down the years down the road, they're more familiar with it and they're more open to the concept. But I really don't think talking to somebody on the street is useful, especially for me. And then you keep referring back to these types of things. These are discussions and questions that you want to be talking to other POCs with after become a POC. That's the point of us having these groups and these meetings to let information cross and mix. And somebody from Italy or somebody from Spain or somebody from Russia says, I tried this technique and this technique worked, this technique didn't work. Of course, cultural borders and all that stuff are going to be problematic, but it's very, very helpful to be talking to these other people in these areas, because that's the idea. Together, we can figure these things out. But generally, I do not have a specific answer for you.
Gotcha. Okay. So, I don't know. Anybody have any questions or anything they want to bring up?
I'll say something. Sorry, I'm just popping in. I have a hard time getting in sometimes, though. But on behalf of what Sean was saying, I kind of get on. I think I know what he's saying about talking to people on the street. Sometimes I feel like I get a little overboard myself. He doesn't bother wasting his own time trying to share these ideas with people on the street, which I understand why, because I try to share these ideas with people on the street, and I don't really feel like I'm getting anywhere with it, I think I don't know, I think it sometimes feels like at least I'm putting a ring in someone's ear, and when things get bad, I think people might look back on it and go, wait a minute, that doesn't sound like such a bad idea after all, and they might spread the idea to other people. And I don't necessarily expect, because I don't always have the right words to explain RBE yet, and that's why I come to these. I hope to learn something from you guys. But I at least like to put a ring in people's ear and something to consider. And a lot of people do know there's something wrong with this system. There's a lot of people that I've talked to but they just don't quite know what it is. They can't quite put their finger on it. And so, like, I try to bring their interest, and I think I brought a few people interested, but not as many as I would like, So I get where he's coming from, because it is hard to really, get people to understand these kinds of ideas, because they're just, like he said, I mean, there was a great example. It's like trying to talk calculus when everybody's on basic math.
Okay. Well, let's say you never talk to anybody on the street ever. Do you feel that that's going to change anything, or you're just going to wait till somebody that's on your level, you're going to speak to them, and you're just going to, or are you going to completely just ignore everybody else until then?
I'm sorry. Can you? Oh, I'm sorry. Can you rephrase that question? Because I'm not really clear what you mean.
Okay. Yeah. I use the example of people on the street. The common person, and like I don't know. The Einstein quote comes to mind: if you can't explain it simply to a 6-year-old, then you don't understand the subject well enough. Meaning, if you can't convey your ideas simply to a broad audience, um, then possibly you should, you know, try to study up a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Well, don't hold yourself to that standard because Jacques can't do that in hours. You know, he can't explain this. He barely gets enough information out in 5 or 6 hours during the tours. You know, and he said long ago that it's useless for me to go on a radio for 10-minute spot because I can't tell them anything. So please don't hold yourself to that standard that you must be able to explain this type of stuff to a 6-year-old easily. It's not going to happen. But I get what you're talking about, and certainly we want to try to get there, or get closer to it anyway. But if somebody like Jacques, who has been working on this for something like 70-odd years, 75 years, can't explain it simply, then don't hold yourself to that standard either.
Okay.
I think that Jacques can explain it easily, maybe that we might do and better than us, because he's been not only working on the project, but also he's been a generalist, which is he has a lot of knowledge in different areas. And that's, I believe that this also is one of the most important thing that we should acquire is knowledge in different areas. Just I mean, based on my personal experience, I can't reach engineers if I have no idea in any engineering field. That's what I'm doing now. I'm trying to reach engineers, because if you don't reach engineers or people who like technicians, and nothing is going to work. If you don't get across the idea among the engineers, nothing is going to work, because the technicians are the people who like actually do real things, and that's why I believe this is the most important part, to enrich yourself with knowledge in different areas, so you can have different kinds of background, or some parts of background, different areas, and you can actually convey your messages better to different kind of people and different people from different backgrounds.
Okay. So yeah, I guess just in the meantime, before you do anything, I guess self-education would be key. Getting the ideas down fairly well before you try to approach somebody, or not even people on the street, even just like friends and family, people that are closer to your mindset or your way of thinking, I guess.
I think
I
it's
find it
also.
incredible. Oh, somebody talking?
No, go ahead. I'll
Did I
go after.
interrupt somebody?
Go ahead. I'll go after.
No, I just said I find it incredibly difficult with my family, actually more difficult than people on the street to, I mean, I guess it depends on your family, because you might have a feeling that's very open-minded, but, there's a lot of great things about my family, just they're kind of opinionated, and they kind of hold really, really tight to our to the value system that we know, that we live by today.
Okay.
And it's
I think as far as talking to people on the street, it is pretty hard to get it through to people. But I think if you focus on just being very general and not talking about very detailed ideas, that's a better way to go. And I generally don't just talk to somebody out of the blue just about it. There's a lot of opportunities for you to bring this idea up in conversation. So if you just become more social and talk to people in general, that'll give you a lot of opportunities. But that's why I created business cards with my information on it. So if I talk to somebody and I mention it to them, they're not just going to forget about it the next second after we stop talking, and they have something to go off of in a website they can go to. But I was going to mention earlier, the good thing about the internet now is that we don't have to talk to total strangers. We can have our network of friends online, and that's kind of a good way to introduce a lot of people, because they already know who you are, you're already familiar with them, your friends or family members or so on. And you might not be able to talk to each one of them face to face, but you can put these ideas out there in different ways regularly. And eventually, when, it's like your environment, eventually, if you do it often enough, people will start to think more about it and understand it, and it will become part of their social or their mental universe, because if they've never heard about it, then it's totally foreign.
Got it.
Yeah, Brian, what you're talking about before, it's you don't have a lot of success. None of us have a lot of success in this. Come on. But it is useful to be talking to people, because I wrote in the chat, I don't know if you're able to see it, I wrote, you cannot choose something you have never been exposed to. So therefore, if a person, let's say this scenario, the entire world collapses tomorrow, all the economies, all this stuff, and all the governments and everything, what happens next? And imagine like we're in America. This is the only example I have to go off because I'm in America. What are they going to do? They're going to decide between capitalism or capitalism, right? And they're not going to consider communism, socialism, any of these, because we're already way too brainwashed in this stuff. But if we are able to educate the populace here over the next however many years, and then there's a collapse, and they are aware of resource-based economy, they at least can have the option to choose it. So likely they're not gonna, because what do they? But but you can't make a choice if you've never been exposed to it. We're not free in this world. We don't have the ability to just make up something out of zero information. You have to have been exposed to it one way or another for your mind to even be able to conceive of it. So just that alone, if we have no success in the streets, but just getting it in their ear for the first time, that is a success. And Jock recommends that if at least you're able to, like Clifton might say, if you're at least able to plant a seed and then move on, right? And so a seed you understand that they value possessions and money a lot. You could plant a seed about how that's counter to the global population, and they might have doubts in their next purchase or something like that. So I don't know. But you can't make a choice of something you've never been exposed to, so it is useful, even though I said I personally don't do it, talking people to the street. But I'm in America. I'm in a very conservative religious town. It is an epic waste of my time. I'm going to stick to this type of stuff and making videos for people like you guys and other people that are already out there who already think this way, and they think that they're alone in their area. That's what I like to focus on. That I like to focus on the people that are already here. They just aren't aware of us.
Yeah,
I meant here, value system, mental-wise, not here.
Yeah. All right. We already talked about trying to reach people using common ground. We already talked about using semantics to establish communication. I don't know. Is there a way to use or explain how technology could be used to I don't know, make things better possibly? You want to explain that idea to people? Like, was there a way to do that, you think?
I think there definitely is. You could do it a number of different ways, but one way you can approach that is to, if you get in the conversation, ask somebody or mention to somebody that the fact that technology, it changes so fast now, and it's getting faster and faster. So why do we still follow the same old customs and ways of living? Why hasn't that ever changed? And exposing someone to this idea, it might get their minds thinking about that. So it works, I think, especially well if you're talking to somebody about an RBE specifically, and they're resistant to it, and they think that what we have now is the best way to do things. So if you just mention to them that, why is it that we have all these problems, we can't solve them, and technology is racing ahead while our old system is just staying where it's at. It's been stagnant for so long. And if they think it's, you're trying to do something that's related to socialism or communism, which we get in the U.S. a lot, there's a lot of paranoia about that. I think it's useful to point out to them that the system we have now is more like those things than what we're talking about in RBE with. They have the same basic elements of, a leader at the top, a pyramid-shaped structure, and we have governments that they use the military and use force. We still use money in the same way. We still have all the old social stratifications, and we have prisons and problems like that. Those don't seem to change. But what we're talking about here is something that totally breaks away from that mold and looks at society in a fully practical and sensible fashion and uses technology directly to benefit people and to protect our ecosystems. So it's kind of a long way to say it, but exposing them to the idea that we could be doing things totally differently, not just following the old established ways of living.
Yeah. Yeah, I try to explain to people that technology is basically, the heart of technology is to free people from some sort of labor, whether it be like manual or mental labor, so that human beings are more free, however you choose to interpret the word, with their time to pursue things that they feel are more relevant to their happiness or what have you, to explore, different aspects of being human, it seems.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do you guys feel that, people that you may meet, like friends, family, whoever, are generally off-put by technology because A, they don't understand it, or B, because they feel they see it being used in harmful fashions?
I think a lot of people see the current information technology we use now as negative, and that it's dumbing us down and making us, more ignorant, which is it's true to a certain degree, but if you look back at how people lived, I mean, they all had a certain type of technology that they learned to use, and their intelligence just shifted to whatever the current age is, whatever the technology is at that time. Whether it's the caveman who picked up a rock for the first time, or you using your iPhone and talking to someone face to face on it. We're all just adjusting our intelligence to what the current technology is. And in some ways, we're much smarter than people were, even decades or hundreds of years ago. In certain other ways, we've off-put our thinking process to our technology, so we're dumber in that way. Like maybe we can't remember entire pages of text and books like people used to do, but that's because we have it already. We can just look it up.
Yeah.
Yet they wouldn't know the first thing to do with a computer either. So it's all relative.
Yeah. Anybody else see anything to add?
Well, I often hear, it's people often get like Jack says, he always points out that people relate to Hollywood, and they relate to the Terminator and all this crap like that, and they think that machines will get too advanced and artificial intelligence and annihilate us in the future. You know, they worry about stuff like that. And I guess if we really pursued AI to that degree, then we probably would have a lot to worry about. But I think in a resource-based economy, I don't think that would be relevant because we're only basically essentially building sensors that would, you know, a cybernated sensor system that would pretty much tell everybody where the resources are and the relevant resources that are necessary for life. I don't see how machines would turn into like, well, decide that people are definitely just going to continue to be a cancer, know all the how to calculate the math and determine that people are just going to kill the environment, so people need to go and just wipe us all out or something like that. You know, some crazy stuff like that. And Jock always even says like, machines don't work that way. Well, if you design it to work that way, it will. So hoping that that's not the case when, if AI does take over, I mean, because everything's going every which direction. It's not even, if I was confident that a resource-based economy was, an irrelevant way of applying technology was going to happen in the future, well then, there's nothing to worry about. But the thing that there is to worry about is that there's a lot of people that don't understand what the Venus Project is advocating, and therefore it's just going to go whatever direction whoever decides the direction's going to go, So I think it's possible that machines could turn that way if we don't, do something now.
So it sounds like a lot of people would be that's due to like a lot of misinformation and projecting human emotions and behavior traits into inanimate objects and stuff. So in that case, I don't think that people have anything to worry about as far as a robot uprising. Jock gives the example of you were to go to, like, let's say Best Buy, you took all the laptops and made a circular arrangement around one center laptop or whatever. You smashed that laptop. All laptops aren't going to be like, we're going to get you. If not today, if not tomorrow, we're going to get you sometime soon. They're not going to, do anything like that. You don't have to really worry about that. That's just, Terminator. You know what I mean? Like Terminator's work of fiction already. So, yeah.
People bring that are up a lot though. People that I bring up the Venus Project to, they're like, "Oh no, I don't know if I if I trust technology." And it's like, well, it's the people that don't know how to use it. They use it to kill. They use it to go to war and stuff like that. And that's what gives Hollywood the idea in the first place.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, like you brought. That's a good point, actually. Like drones, for example, is a piece of technology that could be used for good as well. Like drones. I work as a delivery driver. It'd be freaking amazing if I could order something online or whatever and just have a robot drop it off to my front door instead of putting human beings in danger. Sit in traffic for 6 to 12 hours a day, risking their lives essentially or whatever. Whereas you could have like a robot who doesn't really have life to worry about and had the same exact thing. Like, and or you could use a drone to like search for missing people in the woods or people lost out to sea and stuff like that. You could use technology in many beautiful ways, it seems. But in this current system, they use drones. They stick a gun on it, and white people away that way. It's unfortunate. So yeah, I guess people in the system, they would have to project because that's pretty much all they're brought up to see. What I mean? It's like, it's unfortunate, but I think that you can show people that technology could be used wisely if like I said, I'm a delivery driver. The other alternative could be 3D printing as well. Like you just print up what you need instead of wasting resources like ordering stuff off of Amazon or such or whatever, wasting jet fuel. It'd be just more efficient that way. There's more efficient ways to use technology and stuff to better human lives and such.
And anytime someone says they don't trust technology, I mean, there's a million examples that you could give to them that they already trust it to, that they don't even realize. They could do it way better than a human being. I mean, we know how many people die in car wrecks every year. That's almost all human related, human error.
Yeah.
Yet, you know, people say that, you know, ask them if they trust the machines that built our car that they're driving, you know, that's mostly put together by a machine, but it's directed by people, so it all depends on how you direct the technology.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything to add on using technology to bridge people together?
Social
yeah, I
media.
mean, oh,
No, go ahead.
I think they're pretty. There is a lot of examples on technology. Everything what we have is technological. It's just you can I don't know. It can take an example of everything. Like you take even electricity as a technology. So while you shut down all the electricity, what will happen? Now let's see how you don't try the technology. I mean, it's like I don't understand what people mean by I don't trust technology. I have no idea what they mean about that. They mean that we just take everything we have so far, as from electricity to the cell phone, it's a technology. So I really I would give them a lot of examples that take away this thing, that thing, and they would hopefully they think about that. But you know what they mean by technology, like everything we have is technology. It's not just like a robot is only one technology, or yeah, it's still ambiguous even when they say like this sentence. I don't trust technology. So you can give them a lot of examples on this point.
All right. Yeah, sounds like people they don't understand how they relate to the current technological environment, and so they may be apprehensive or scared or what have you of technology because they just don't understand it. And I think that you know, if you can educate them on how technology's to be used wisely and such, I think that people would be less afraid of technology. But does anybody have any closing words, I guess? Any last thoughts on tonight's topics?
I think the host was great.
Lane.
This is Stefan's first hosting of a hangout, I should note, so good job.
Yeah.
Anybody have anything constructive to say? Nothing?
I would just like to see that if they're gonna you know, I think if the government is gonna spend trillions of dollars to go and annihilate, you know, Middle Eastern countries, they could spend that kind of money, or probably even less as much money, probably wouldn't even cost as much, to give them things that can help add to their culture. To give, if we keep giving, if we were able to give to them, like, I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but from their perspective, not from mine, but from their perspective, it seems crazy. But if they were able to just say, all right, well, let's just help these people build and help these people, and yeah, they're probably going to want to fight each other or something like that because of their religions and stupid shit like that. But I think that it would probably, if we just kept doing that, I think it would probably change their behavior. That they think like, wow, these people want to like do something for me, and they want to do something to feed me and feed my family and, and my children, and do something for us, rather than annihilate us because we're annihilating the children. And I think that's where terrorists is coming from. It's just, the fact that, you know, we're terrorizing them. So, you know what I'm saying? It's like a endless vicious cycle. Well, I think that if we were able to just say, all right, let's just build for them, spend, half as much money, and probably can build enough for everybody to be happy out there. And then if you make them happy, then they won't want to have war in the first place. But I don't know. That's just my.
I definitely agree. Yeah, help. Yeah, instead of pointing a gun at somebody, you could teach them how to irrigate the land, or build desalination plants, or whatever, what have you. Like, help them grow food and establish proper schools and hospitals and stuff like that. I think that would be definitely a productive way to go about helping other countries and stuff, and building bridges.
I can imagine it would be difficult to give them education, because that culture out there, supposedly, if what I hear is true, that they fight off education, that they don't want their people educated. Their government is very against education. They'd rather still believe the Earth is flat.
I mean, I just mean generally, not any one specific country, but just generally speaking, just educating, using technology to educate people and stuff, instead of wrecking their homes and what have you. But yeah, I guess that's it. I guess I'm gonna go ahead and stop the broadcast. So yeah, that was tonight's hangout. March 22nd, 2015. Thanks to everybody for attending. And yeah, awesome. Thanks.
Sorry I couldn't come earlier.
That's cool.
Have a good one.
All right.
Take care.
Yeah.